How you doing, Coach?
I'm good.
Yeah, good game for you?
Good outcome.
So, a little over 400 yards given up, but you guys are opportunistic defense. You keep coming up with plays when you need it. And then Coach was talking about the last goal line stand. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think make a big point about finishing. I mean, we talk about finishing in a winter workout in January when no one's around. We talk about finishing in spring ball, finishing in the summer, all that stuff, and then all of a sudden you get so many Saturdays. And okay, we say finish. And I know that we finished at an elite level, but in that moment, the guys did. And so that means something. It does. Call it a meaningless score, but it's only meaningless if you attach that, kind of moniker to it. So it obviously did mean something. And so that it might be a bigger thing than any of us realize. But to your point, from a yardage standpoint, I refuse to believe it's the best we can play. I refuse to believe that. And that's a good opponent and a real quality offense. And football's hard, and all those things are true. But I refuse to believe that's the best we can play.
How important like big, just a handful of plays? I thought the team played pretty well. What needs to improve in order to prevent some of those breakaway plays?
Well, obviously we got to coach better. I mean, there's a theme forming here, and some of it too. I'll say this: is some of those plays they feel like in the moment like it's a trick play, like something we haven't seen, something that an offense either schemes us up or something that our rules don't allow for execution in that moment. And I promise you that's not the case. Now, it doesn't matter if you have rules for it if the guys aren't executing. So it still comes back down to coaching. And so we got to do a better job of it. We got to make sure that the things we're saying and doing over the course of the work week leading up into Saturday, the things that we're doing on Saturdays. And, we got to start believing around here that Saturday is an extension of the work week. That's what it is. Now, if we're not doing the right things during the course of the work week from a preparation standpoint as coaches, then we got real issues. But we take a lot of pride in preparing these guys. So, no, those are unacceptable. They're not good. They lead to points, and then it can put you behind the eight ball, which a lot of times it did tonight, and found ways to get some stops when in some difficult situations that were created by us, and obviously a good opponent that can make you pay.
What's the most fixable part of all that?
What's that? I'm sorry.
What's the most fixable part?
I like to believe all of it. I mean, you go back and look at it, and if you got an A gap, you got to take an A gap. I'll use the example. We play single gap defense. On the goal line, each had an individual gap, and each guy took an individual gap, and all of a sudden they couldn't get 1 yard. Now, our guys made a decision in that moment that they were going to play a certain way. And my argument would be we can play that way on the 40-yard line. We can play that way on the 35-yard line. We can play that first and 10 with 80 yards behind us. So somewhere there's a disconnect that there's decisions being made as to how we're going to play based on situational things. And so we got to get the message across that way. And so that's one. And then number two is the communication. Is do we need to shuffle the deck? Do we need more guys out there, barking, to put everybody's mind at ease? It's not necessarily miscommunication, but if you're whispering or some guy's saying this, could that create some of those things? But all this is it's coaching. That's what's fixable. We got to coach better.
How important is Solomon Byrd's emergence been?
How about that? A couple weeks ago he wasn't even repping for us. It just as the depth chart fell and all those things, the guy just kept working. And then we've talked before. I think post scrimmage is about guys not taking advantage of opportunities, and man, he has, and really has had an impact for us. And so, thrilled for him. And obviously thrilled for us because we're dying to find those playmakers for us, and so that's been good. It's going to continue.
What is it about his game that makes him so special?
Just we talk about effort all the time, and he plays with max effort, darn near on every play. But also from a trust standpoint, you tell him to be in a gap, he's in a gap. A high percent of the time, just do your job, do your 111th. It's probably going to be good enough if you do it with the appropriate physicality and you do appropriate what we call strain, but appropriate effort. And so he kind of become a poster child for it. And the nice thing is the visual is he does those things. It should be a message to everybody else that maybe if I play this way, that I can have some production too.
How much did that sack of his just kind of set the tone for the defense?
Absolutely. Reminded that was the first drive. I say. Well, and then that's something of major emphasis. You're coming out of halftime. And I don't remember exactly what the score was at that point, but that's a huge drive in the game. Huge drive in the game. And obviously we talk about takeaways all the time because of the impact of that. But no, to find yourself immediately giving the ball back to the offense, and obviously they did, as they well, specific to tonight, did a great job moving the football. You get it immediately back to them, steal possession that way. No, it was critical, absolutely critical. And I got to highlight, Epps, the Hail Mary at the end. That's something that you practice, but it's not like he's got a million reps of that thing. It's hey, go high point of football. So that was pretty cool.
Speaking of the Epps, was he supposed to knock it down?
No, well, and I'll give you our secrets. And what as we studied over the years, the knockdown creates tips. And so what we tell the guys is if you have a good track on the football, we'd rather eliminate all those issues. I think there's a tip, actually, maybe an Appalachian State game today. And it's so that if we can, right, and sometimes you don't have a good track on the football, but we define a jumper, and we try to come down with it just to eliminate that other variable. It's easy to say. He's got to go do it. And that's a big body back there. So that was cool.
Did you and Sullivan have a conversation after he was kind of put at the bottom of the depth chart there?
Just keep swinging, keep working. I mean, part of it is between end and rush and what's our best 11, and those are ongoing conversations. I mean, as I sit here today, there's some things going through my mind in terms of what the depth chart is going to look like on Monday. I mean, we got to be better, and so any guy that's willing to do his job and do it with an elite effort and can find some production, we got to find a spot for him. And so, no, it's Coach Mann does a great job with him, but all the credit goes to Solomon.
Is it difficult to wait a letdown when Hayner gets hurt and so much attention is on that quarterback?
Yeah, I think the scoreboard, and then I think certainly we all knew what type of quarterback he was, if you point the finger at myself, you're saying, okay, well, how's this thing going to change? Are they going to run the football, but the scoreboard's this? Or are they going to throw it and stuff? So I mean, maybe a little bit overthinking that way, but no, we got to make sure that. It's still us on film, regardless of who the opponent is in that moment or who's playing in that moment. To execute our calls. That quarterback doesn't dictate whose gap of responsibility it is, right? So if there is a letdown, that's a message that obviously we got to get across to the guys that what a shame that would be to allow that to affect your performance.
Thank you, Coach Grinch.
Okay, thank you.